What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video is going to be an extremely important video that I believe a lot of you guys can take bits and pieces of information out of. Now, do I believe this is going to be the most entertaining video in the world? Not necessarily, and I really am going to be lying to you if I told you that it would be. But I'm going to try my best to make it as entertaining as I possibly can. But the reason why this is going to be an extremely important video, because this is going to help you to pass emissions. And not only am I going to tell you guys how I personally passed emissions with the steps I'm about to tell you guys here shortly, but I'm also going to tell you guys too how you guys can remove the upper O2 sensors over on your 2014 Mustang. I think you can also do it through the 2013 Mustangs, 2011, 10, and so forth, so forth. But there's also two other things I want to bring up in this video that are extremely, and I mean extremely important, because if it wasn't for these two things, I don't think I was going to be able to pass emissions, or at least make it very hard to pass emissions. I didn't even think twice about it, and when I was told by the only person that gave me any sort of information out of anybody who's experienced, I was surprised to hear this. I'm pretty sure it'll work for a lot of you guys as well if you're dealing with this issue. So let's jump right in to how you can pass emissions. To help you diagnose your issue immediately if you're dealing with a check engine light, you want to make sure you get yourself something like this. This is an OBD2 reader, and this is a very cheap one. There's nothing special about this at all. I believe it was around like $20 to $23 on Walmart. This is nothing really spectacular, but it definitely does a job when you need it. At any point, you're able to scan the car whenever you need in case that check engine light comes on, or if any other issues arise that you realize are causing issues on your car. So I'm going to give you guys an example of how this thing works. If I can go find my key. First thing you want to do is put the key into the ignition, not start the car, and as you can see, all the dash lights turn on. And I'm going to go plug this piece over at the bottom of my dash and plug that straight in. Then you'll see that this thing turns right on immediately. I'm going to click enter. It's going to say setup, scan, just click enter. And you'll see all 8 monitors on. I have 3 that are not available, and I have 0 codes found, and I have 0 that are incomplete. You'll see that code will change the moment that you unplug your battery, or if you decide to clear all the codes. So whenever you do clear the car, you will realize that all those monitors will set back to 0, because everything has to relearn itself, and everything will have to just go back to its normal ways of understanding how the car's computer is going to work, and to make sure there's no any other trouble codes. But one thing I like to do though is I like to scan the trouble codes and make sure that anything wrong with the car, I'll go clear them, and if they pop up again, I know there is a serious issue and it has nothing to do with the computer playing games on me. So if you wanted to click on it, you'll see that I'm going to click enter, pending codes, and it'll say that there's no pending codes that are pretty much stored inside the system. And other nice areas that you can erase the codes off your system, meaning that if you do erase it, that check engine light will turn off. And it only turn off for a short period of time, because if you do have an issue, that light will more than likely turn on again. It sends to clear, so that's meaning that since the last time I cleared this system, these are what the monitors are like. And obviously with this drive cycle, it's going to tell you exactly what it was like on this drive cycle, if those monitors turned on or not. And if I click enter, you'll see that all my monitors are okay, where I got the fuel system, the catalyst monitor, evap system, and so forth and so forth. And you can see right there, my oxygen sensors are okay. And that was the issue I was dealing with before, that my oxygen sensors were not turning on, and I had to diagnose the issue immediately, because if I don't have those on, I'm not going to pass emissions. In this case, let's treat it as if I do have an issue with the O2 sensor and I'm going to have to go and diagnose it. The very first thing that you will notice when you go to look at your O2 sensors and figure out exactly where they're at, you'll end up finding out they are sitting right next to the firewall and right behind the engine. And you'll see that there's this blue little wire right here, and in this case I replaced this one and it was blue, and I'm pretty sure the last one was blue as well. But you can see that it's not really too hard to get to. It's just the difficult part is when you stick a tool in there, it seems like no matter which way you try to turn the tool, it just wants to hit the engine, or it wants to hit the firewall, or you just have no leverage at all and you just cannot break it loose because you're not strong enough. But other than that, you also got this side too, that's even harder, where you got this big ass battery in the way, and again you also have the engine and you have the firewall. So you just have another obstacle in your way, and you start thinking, how the hell do I access those, and how the hell did you get them off? So as you guys can see as proof, I ended up removing this, and this is what the old one looked like. This is the upper O2 sensor, and it is a little dirty. There is nothing too spectacular about it. This is what it looks like after 91,000 miles. So it held up and did its due diligence for as long as it possibly could. But at the same time, if I was going to replace one side, I obviously wanted to replace the other, because the last thing I want to do is have to replace that, then eventually that side goes out. But in this case, it was this side that ended up going out, and of course it had to be the hardest side. So we don't really care about that one anymore, because that is the old one. I'm not 100% 100% sure if this was the one that was broken, but either way, it doesn't really matter because I got some brand new ones in there. So how did I remove this? I ended up using this tool right here. You can go over at the auto parts store and rent one of these, or you can do what I did and end up purchasing it over on Amazon. It's about $15, but it was definitely worth the investment for the one time that I did need it. And it's always nice to have it just because if you ever need to remove the downstream ones, you always have the tool to do so. So you definitely need this tool in order to remove the upper O2 sensors off this car, because I have tried it with the deeper socket and it just did not work at all. It seemed like, again, every time I tried putting it in there, I can get the fit, but I would have absolutely zero room when it came to trying to put the tool on. Also realize too, when you are able to put this on, you do get a little bit of leverage. You'll realize too that it's extremely hard to pull on that thing. And you're like, how the hell am I gonna get this thing off? I know I can break it off. I'm in good position to do it, but it's just so tight on there. So what do I do in order to get it off? What I found that works really, really well is by throwing some PB Blaster on there and letting it sit for a couple of minutes. And another thing you really want to make sure you do, because if it wasn't for this, I probably wouldn't have been able to get this thing off, and that is getting a breaker bar. In this case, I ended up grabbing just a Razor scooter and taking the bars off of it and just using it as an extension over on this tool right here. So I realized when I was able to put that tool up, I ended up getting the scooter bar, I ended up pulling it to the side, and fair enough, it ended up breaking off. But that was just only one part of the puzzle that I still had to figure out the other part of it as well. You don't want to go too crazy with it, because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to strip the threads inside your catalytic converter, and now you have them replace all of it all at once and you're just starting back from square one again. So when you do that, make sure you spray a little bit of like lubricant or even PB Blaster inside the threads whenever you do loosen it up, and kind of go back and forth with the threads to make sure that when you are doing it, you're not stripping the threads out. And again, the last thing you want to do is replace that whole thing when you don't really need to, for just a very simple job. But this side is just a little bit different. In this case, you are and you must remove the battery, because I have tried it with just reaching my hand in there, and again, I could fit the tool in there, but again, it becomes extremely difficult when that battery is in the way. And you get a lot more room when you're able to remove this battery, and eventually you'll be able to break it off, and this is what it looked like when you take it off. But one important note I do want to mention as well, is once you do take this off, is make sure that you unclip this, because the last thing you want to do is start twisting the wire as you're trying to break it loose, and you end up breaking something that you don't want to break. And the same goes when you put the thing back on. Screw this on first. You'll see that there is some threads on there. Make sure you screw it on first, then clip it on, because you don't want to twist those wires and end up having to buy a whole new O2 sensor, because I know these things can get really expensive. And once I ended up replacing those O2 sensors, I knew the issue was fixed, but the problem I was also running into is that the check engine light wouldn't turn off, and it seemed like even after I cleared it, the code would stay stored on the computer, and it seemed like no matter how many times I cleared it, the light would turn on faster and faster each time, or to the point where I'd even have to have the car started and the light would already turn on the moment I was checking it over on the scanner. So I was trying to figure out how the hell is this even happening and how do I fix it? I also want to tell you guys do some simpler steps you guys can take in order to pass emissions, and one of the very first things I did is I ended up removing this cold air intake right here, and I ended up spraying some throttle body cleaner inside there just to get all that gunk and grime out of there, because it does build up over time. So cleaning that out definitely does help. And then as you start moving down, you'll also see that there's a mass airflow sensor right here. Getting some mass airflow sensor cleaner and maybe even a rag and just cleaning this thing up definitely helps, because that could definitely lag when it comes to your air to fuel ratios. Then you'll also move down as well, and you'll also see that you have a big fat filter. In this case, I do, or even maybe you have the stock OEM filter. It's always great to clean those or even replace them. Once you clean this out, it definitely cleans everything up really well, because over time, again, since their air is sucking inside the engine, you're gonna start seeing a lot more dirt and grime and everything. So it is gonna restrict some things a little bit. You gotta think about it in the engine standpoint, that if there's stuff restricting it, it's gonna be harder for the air to get in. But once you clean out all that gunk and grime and everything that's restricting it, it makes it to where it's gonna breathe a lot better. And those are some of the very easy things that only took me a few minutes to do, and I guarantee you guys could do it as well. And it's very cheap and affordable to do so, and it does definitely help when it comes to passing emissions. Now, going into the most important part of this video, I can almost guarantee you guys, if it wasn't for this one simple thing that I did that had not cost me any money at all, I don't think I was gonna be able to pass smog. I was this close, I mean this close, to taking my car in somewhere and having somebody diagnose and check it out, even though I was gonna pay $100 for somebody to do the exact same thing I did. But it was coming to the point where I just didn't know what I was gonna do. I was running out of options, and I was running very thin, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna be able to do. But I ended up finding out one thing from one person that I was not expecting this from at all, and I mean like at all. From all the people I've like read online in forums or even just on YouTube videos or anything like that, no one really gave me the definite answer that I really needed. You just know when you're on YouTube and you're looking for that answer, and people are kind of like jumping around the idea of like a similar problem you're having, but it's not really answering the question that you're having the problem to. So I asked a variety of people who do have experience in the car industry of why why this issue is happening, and they all kind of gave me the same answer, but again, it wasn't the answer I really needed. Then I went up to one person again that I was not expecting, and that was my dad. And usually my dad is the type that doesn't really give me the answers I would like, and it's the answers I don't really want to accept, because I think he just has this like 1980s, 2000s car vibe idea, like, oh yeah, that thing will run for like 20 years if you just leave it the way it is. Like, no, like, I don't really run like that, and I replace things as I go once I need it, because I like to have that sense of mind that things work well. But he ended up giving me this one piece of advice that I personally believe worked extremely well, and I want to share it to each and every single one of you guys, because I guarantee I did not think it was going to work. So the light was not turning off on this car. Clearly, as it shows, as I was telling you guys earlier, the light would not turn off after I changed the O2 sensors, and I had absolutely no clue why. And a lot of you guys might be jumping already to the conclusion now, oh yeah, I know how you could do that. Just clear the code out over on the scanner and that will help it. No, that did not help. Or you might be like, all right, well, dummy, you should have changed the battery then if that was the case, or unplugged it. That did not work either. It seemed like no matter what I did, I unplugged the battery, I let it sit for 15 to 30 minutes. I even had the terminals touching each other. That's not connected to the battery, so I had the negative and I had the positive touching one another, and held that for 15 minutes so I could really just drain the entire system out so I could start fresh. And again, that wasn't working. So I'm like, I don't know what to do at this point. And my dad ended up telling me, he's like, you know, I was just talking to your grandfather earlier, and you know, there's like a little trick with Mustangs, or just even cars in general, where you can just, you know, unbuckle the seatbelt 20 times, and then push the dome light, and then push the gas pedal 13 more times, and open your door twice. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. That's not gonna work. I'm like, that just sounds like some circus shit. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, it's gonna work. I'm like, no, it is not gonna work. And he's like, just try it. So I'm like, all right. So I'm gonna tell you guys exactly what I did, and this, fair enough, worked. So what you need to do is you need to get in your car. And I'm not gonna redo this again, because the moment I redo this again, I know that I'm probably gonna have issues with this. And the first thing you wanna do to make this work is you wanna grab your key, put it in the ignition. And once you put it in the ignition, do not turn it on just yet, because I want to tell you guys what you guys need to do. You'll see there's a bunch of dash lights that'll turn on over on the left side of your speedometer. And once those turn on, and the moment you see them turn off, you want to start with this process. And once you do that, you're going to turn on the key. You'll see all the lights turn on, and then they'll turn off. And right when you do that, you want to push the gas pedal slowly to the floor and slowly release it back up. The gas pedal definitely needs to touch the floor, and just realize now that looks absolutely disgusting. I need to clean that. Don't be fast with it, and it might take a couple tries, but I guarantee you it will work. And once you do that, you'll notice that your check engine light will turn off. So pretty much what this process does is it resets your PCM over on your computer, where it's just completely factory, where there's no memory on there, there is absolutely nothing. So the car's gonna have to relearn itself as you drive for probably about 50 to 100 miles, if not more. And what that does is it takes away all those pending codes you had over on your car, to where now it just starts fresh. Now again, same goes with the O2 scanner. If there is a code and it's still showing, it's gonna show up. It eventually will show up. But if you did have a code and it's just stored on the computer and you just can't get it away, even after you did replace the part, try that process. I'm telling you right now, it saved me so much money and so much time once I did that, and I did not believe that clown shit would have worked, but it really did. I'm telling you guys right now, this might be the key to your answer. And another thing you could do as well, if you do have the premium model, I'm not 100% sure how the base model is, you want to go to settings, and once you go to settings, you go all the way down, and you'll see that it says system reset. Once you click that, it'll say hold OK to reset the system to factory default, and that could potentially work as well. Now personally me, I did both of those. I did that, plus I also did that foot pedal thing. And ever since that day, the check engine light hasn't turned on. And I even just showed you guys a couple minutes ago that the scanner also showed there was no codes at all. So that did show that the O2 sensors are working and they're all in good order. I hope this video helped you guys. And if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button down below. And don't be afraid to ask any questions. Leave them down in the comment section down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you guys all so much for watching today's video, and I will see you guys in the next one.